a warm welcome to State of Business on our television. I'm Hishain Ali and let's have a look at the headlines first. President directs the officials to make sure the essential services are conducted with the assistance of minimum number of persons. Archbishop of Colombo blamed political leadership for failing to prevent the carnage took place a year ago. News in detail. Director General of Health Services Dr. Anil Jaisinghas states that 6 new coronavirus patients have been identified for the day, bringing the total cases in the country to 310. Accordingly, 5 COVID-19 positive cases identified for the day are residents from Bandaranaike Mawatha in Colombo 12. Meanwhile, 4 more COVID-19 patients were discharged today after a full recovery, increasing the total recoveries in the country to 102. Meanwhile, Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavindra Silva today announced that 1,010 persons from 242 families residing in Bandaranaike Mawatha in Colombo 12 were sent for quarantine today. They were sent to quarantine centres operated by the Sri Lanka Army. More than 200 persons from the Bandaranaike Mawatha in Colombo 12 were sent to quarantine centres yesterday. Moreover, 149 persons at the quarantine centres were sent home today after the completion of the quarantine process. So far, 4,348 persons have been quarantined at quarantine centres, while 1,542 are still under quarantine centres. On the other hand, the government today ordered all island-wide liquor shops to be closed with immediate effect. Issuing a statement today, President's Media Division said that all liquor shops in the country will be closed until further notice. Meanwhile, officers from the Sri Lankan Navy engaged in disinfection of the Paliyagoda fish market premises. Paliyagoda Central Fish Market was closed for 3 days after a fish vendor who had visited the premises after contracted COVID-19. Officials also said that all the employees and fish stall owners of the Paliyagoda Fish Market would be subjected to PCR tests tomorrow. Subsequently, all traffic fines issued on or before March 1st are allowed to be paid at post offices and sub-post offices until May 2nd. Also, a grace period has been granted to pay traffic fines issued from February 16th to 29th until May 2nd. Colombo Archbishop His Eminence Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit says that it is regret to see some efforts from few elite personalities in covering up the Easter Sunday attack incident and individuals behind the heinous attack. The chief of Catholic Church in Sri Lanka made these remarks in a televised message to commemorate the first anniversary of the Easter Sunday attacks that happened last year. The series of attacks on Easter Sunday last year struck 3 churches in 3 districts and 3 hotels in Colombo in a coordinated series of bombings, killing over 250 and wounding more than 500. Allegations were brought against then Good Governance regime, charging that intelligence information from a neighbor country was neglected and allowed to take place a massacre. Former President Maithripala Sirisena, who was also the defense minister at the time, later appointed a commission of inquiry to probe the carnage, with the final report yet to be compiled. Nearly 200 suspects have been arrested by the Criminal Investigations Department and Terrorist Investigation Division following the attacks, and 5 suspects, including a brother of a former minister, were arrested last week. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, issuing a statement on the first anniversary of the Easter Sunday attacks, said that terrorism is not accepted in any society. Instead, humanity is always accepted. He also assured that he will bring all the culprits behind this heinous attack before the law during his term. He also called upon all citizens to remember the Sri Lankans as well as the foreign nationals who were killed, wounded and disabled in this attack by lighting a candle and observing a minute's silence this morning. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, in a recorded statement to the media, reiterated that the Easter Sunday attack, which took place sharp 1 year ago, could have been easily prevented if the necessary security measures were taken by then political leaders.
ශ්‍රී ලාංකිකයන්ට මරාගෙන මැරෙන ප්‍රහාර අමුතු දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. නමුත් පාස්කු ඉරිදා ප්‍රහාරය බෙදුම්වාදයට විරුද්ධව පැවති යුද්ධ කාලයේ අපි අත්දැකපු ප්‍රහාරවලට වඩා වෙනස්. පාස්කු ඉරිදා ප්‍රහාරය සිද්ධ වුණ දිනය, ඉලක්ක ස්ථාන, සහභාගී වන ත්‍රස්තවාදීන්ගේ නම් ලිපින ඇඳුම් පත්තාංක හා දුරකථන අංක පවා අපේ මිත්‍ර රටක බුද්ධි අංශය විසින් කල් තියාම එවකට බලයේ සිටි ශ්‍රී ලංකා ආණ්ඩුවට සපයා තිබුණා. ඒ නිසා මේ ප්‍රහාරය පහසුවෙන් වළක්වා ගන්න තිබුණා.
Reiterating the fact raised by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Archbishop of Colombo Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit, in his commemorative address of last year's April 21st attacks, blamed political leaders for failing to prevent the carnage as families mourn the loss of their loved ones amidst a police curfew situation due to COVID-19.
We are grateful to those friendly nations that generously shared their intelligence information prior to the attack on several occasions, which our political leaders unfortunately did not take seriously. We are aggrieved that those responsible for governance at that time did not take seriously the repeated warnings received concerning these attacks, and so not only allowed this massacre to take place, but also sought to hide their culpability in different ways after the attack. Still more serious is the responsibility of all those who masterminded these attacks by planning, funding and encouraging the perpetrators and deliberately covering up the facts of the case. Some of them surely knew this was coming. We thank the incumbent president for his insistence in investigating these attacks thoroughly and for ensuring that those who are responsible are brought to book.
Colombo Archbishop Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit, in his televised address, also highlighted that some elite personnel are still in an effort to cover up the incident, as well as the individuals behind this terror attack.
We are indeed sad and shocked to hear that some educated and elitist people, some of whom are connected to the legal profession, are trying to bring pressure on the president to cover up these investigations and possibly hide the authors. What are human rights when they try to use such to cover up the perpetrators and associates of those who violated the basic right to life of so many innocent human beings, men, women and children? We also wish to affirm our confidence in the Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to investigate these events, and we are hopeful that we will be able to ascertain who orchestrated these attacks and who was behind it, as well as who shirked their responsibility to prevent them when they knew about it. At the same time, we Catholics wish to affirm our commitment to live harmoniously with the other religious groups, conscious of the common culture that has been enriched by the teachings of Buddhism to a very large extent, and in which culture we find a high level of acceptance and tolerance. I wish to very specially pay a compliment to the Buddhist clergy who, from the moment this incident happened, showed their solidarity and closeness with us, and even went to the extent of visiting some of our churches and even helping to clean up those churches which had been badly damaged. We are moved by this spirit of solidarity of our Buddhist clergy and of all our people.
Meanwhile, a special Mass was in remembrance of all who fell victim of the Easter Sunday attacks, and the Mass was held at the official residence of Archbishop of Colombo Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa directs the officials to make sure whether the essential services are conducted with the assistance of minimum number of persons. President Rajapaksa provided these directions during a meeting with the several ministry secretaries and the heads of government departments who are being engaged in provision of essential services. Speaking to the ministry secretaries and heads of government departments, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said that essential services should be carried out without disturbing the lifestyles of all citizens. President specially mentioned to take extra precautionary measures when they prepare the schedules for the essential services in the Western Province. He also directed the officials to commence the work with the activities which can be attended with a systematic control. President Rajapaksa also directed the officials to use CTB buses for the transportation of the harvest by the farmers in the rural areas to the towns. He also asked the possibilities of settling utility bills, bank deposits via the rural post offices. The officials also noted that despite the government's effort to prevent the spread of the COVID-19, the general public's assistance is not satisfactory. Stay tuned for more news right after this commercial break. Welcome back after the break. The Colombo Stock Exchange requests all listed entities to unveil the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on their business operations. The CSE announces that it considers that timely, robust and accurate information provided by the listed companies is highly important to the investing public for the sustenance of a fair and orderly market. The CSE said it acknowledges that it may be difficult to assess or predict with precision the broad effects of COVID-19 on industries or individual companies. But the CSE is of the view that although the pandemic is still continuing and it is difficult to forecast the outlook, it is expected that the listed companies give due consideration in making a timely disclosure to the investing public in this regard. Taking the above factors into consideration, the CSE requires the listed companies to make a disclosure to the market as a matter of priority, setting out the following. US President Donald Trump announced he will sign an executive order to temporarily suspend all immigration to the US because of the coronavirus pandemic. Meanwhile, it is reported that the price of US oil has turned negative for the first time in history due to the low demand. Accordingly, more than 2,480,000 coronavirus cases are identified globally, along with more than 170,550 deaths confirmed worldwide. More than 650,000 patients are recovered globally. Moreover, the US is the highly battered country by the pandemic at the moment, with the highest number of confirmed cases and rising death toll. The US now has more than 792,900 coronavirus cases within the country, and its death toll has surpassed 42,000. Spain has more than 200,200 confirmed cases within the country, while Italy and France have more than 150,000 cases in each of the countries. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump announced that he will sign an executive order to temporarily suspend all immigration to the US because of the coronavirus. In a Twitter message, he noted that the move is taken to protect the jobs of Americans but did not give further details. Trump's announcement late on Monday comes as the White House claims the worst of the pandemic is over and the country can begin reopening. On the other hand, it was reported that the price of US oil has turned negative for the first time in history due to low demand. The widespread lockdowns and travel bans have dried down the demand for oil consumption. Oil producers are paying buyers to take the commodity off their hands over fears that storage capacity could run out in May. Hence, oil firms have started renting tankers to store the surplus supply, and that has forced the price of US oil into negative territory. The price of a barrel of West Texas Intermediate, the benchmark for US oil, fell as low as minus $37.63 a barrel. Moving on, a COVID-19 positive case has been identified from Rashtrapati Bhavan, which is the official residence of the Indian President Ram Nath Kovind. Thereafter, a total of 125 families were advised to remain in self-isolation as mandated by the Health Ministry's guidelines as a precautionary measure. Subsequently, Virgin Australia has confirmed it has entered voluntary administration. The country's second-largest carrier cut almost all flights last month following widespread travel bans. Virgin Australia is already struggling with a long-term $3.17 billion debt. Thus, the airline is looking for new buyers and investors after failing to get a loan from Australia's government. Considering the economic deterioration in the country, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has revealed that 517,000 Australians have applied for unemployment welfare in the past month. The government initially predicted that around 10% of the workforce, or 1.4 million people, will be jobless by mid-year. Under this chaotic situation in global economy and social welfare, Alibaba founder Jack Ma says he will be donating 100 million masks, 1 million N95 masks and 1 million test kits to the World Health Organization. The Chinese billionaire had made a series of donations and contributions to control the pandemic, and this is his latest initiative of that sort. World Health Organization stresses that easing restrictions is not the end of the COVID-19 pandemic in any country. Addressing the daily press briefing on coronavirus, World Health Organization Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus yesterday highlighted that countries must now ensure that they can detect, test, isolate, and care for every case and trace every contact.
We want to re-emphasize that easing restrictions is not the end of epidemic in any country. Ending the epidemic will require a sustained effort on the part of individuals, communities, and governments to continue suppressing and controlling this deadly virus. So-called lockdowns can help to take the heat out of a country's epidemic, but they cannot end it alone. Countries must now ensure they can detect, test, isolate, and care for every case and trace every contact. We welcome the accelerated development and validation of tests to detect COVID-19 antibodies, which are helping us to understand the extent of infection in the population.
And that's all news for today. Stay home, stay safe, and have the 1 meter distance even when the curfew is lifted. With that, we will wrap up today's news and see you tomorrow with State of Business. Until then, take care, good night.